Is it clear?
Okay, now I heard you say, is it clear? So let's see.
Okay. So let's see if is it good now?
Yep, yep, you're
Okay,
good.
awesome. Okay, so actually I found out about the lawsuit on television, on the news.
Mm-hmm.
But oddly enough, I have been getting in my news feed on my Instagram, I kept getting these news feeds about McLaren Hall cases. So I was like, okay, what's this about?
Mm-hmm.
So then when I saw it on the news, I YouTubed it, and that's how I found you, was on YouTube. And the gentleman from that now lives in Arizona.
Andrew.
So I watched that, and so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go back to the podcast, and I did. I listened to all those, and then that's what just led me to leave you a message.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that you did, because I've been looking for people to talk to, and some survivors don't want to talk, or they're already in litigation. So maybe that's why they don't want to really speak up at this time. I'm not sure, but I'm glad that you did.
Okay.
So tell me what led you to become a resident of McLaren Hall.
What led me there was I was being physically abused at home.
Okay.
So somebody had reported my mom, but we had already been in foster care. Myself and my younger brother, we had already been in foster care from abuse, and then we were placed with family. And then once we were placed with family, my mom took us away from the family member, and so she was, on the run, so to speak, with us. And he was too young to be in school. And then when there was some more abuse going on with the people that we were living with, and they reported it. And they picked me up from school. So next thing I knew, I was picked up from school, taken to a foster home for one day. A day or two. And then the next thing I knew, I was in McLaren Hall.
And how long were you at McLaren?
I think it was for about 4 or 5 months.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And the crazy thing about it is that I don't remember anybody saying anything to me about why I was there. There was never a court date that I can recall or anything. I was just there.
And so in your 4 months there, like, take us through what that process was like, because you saw the interview I did with Andrew Bridge, and read his book as well. And he was saying that, like you, he didn't know where he was going, why he was going there. And when he showed up, the staff was very cold, rude. He was like 6 years old at the time. So how old were you when this happened?
I was 11.
Okay. And then when you showed up at McLaren, what was that processing like?
It was, in his words, it was cold. It was, there was no, you're dealing with children. You would think that they would be like, well, honey, it's okay. And, you got to work things out to be back with your mom or whatever case may be. Even though the abuse was there, your parent is your parent.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there was none of that. And I was thrown in this dorm with another little girl, and I can't recall her name, but she wasn't Black, she wasn't Mexican. I'm assuming she was a Caucasian little girl. And we were just there, and we were just thrown into the system of, you get up, you eat breakfast, you go outside and play a little bit. Then you're locked in your rooms, and, the kids crying and, screaming for whatever reasons, or, at that age, I'm not thinking about mental illness because I don't even know what mental illness is at that age. So I just remember being locked in the room a lot. And so my little mind was always planning an escape route to AWOL. So, or I would try to sneak the phone at the front desk when nobody was, when I thought like staff or somebody wasn't around, to try to call my mother. And I don't even know what I could have used a name like, hey, I'm in McLaren Hall, or if she even knew.
Yeah.
At a certain point. So my first incident there with molestation was another child there. And we were outside playing or whatever, and it became sexual, and he kissed me and thrust his tongue down my mouth.
Mm.
And that had never happened to me before. So I told the staff woman that was there, don't know her name, really can't recall what she looked like. And I told her, and she was like, oh, nothing's wrong with you, or nothing's wrong with that. And it was like, you know, I guess it was in their minds, you know, cute little girl boy stuff, you know, but that always stuck with me because that was like my first kiss, so to speak, even though I didn't want it, or I wasn't even thinking about that kind of stuff. So nothing was done there. And then there was like a holiday. I want to say it was holiday, but I'm 11, so don't quote me on holiday. And they had like celebrities come in, you know, to talk to the kids, take pictures with the kids. And I just remember, you know, being hugged up by, you know, these other adults that came in, you know, like celebrities, and, you know, take pictures. So as I'm always planning my escape to AWOL or off of one of the little trips or whatnot, I never got the courage to do it. There was a dance. The part where I was in, it was either called the Dixies or the Pixies.
Pixies, I think it was.
And Pixies. Okay, so yeah, that's where I was. And there was a dance in another part of the compound, or whatever you want to call it. And I'm slow dancing with another child. And you know, I don't think you don't know. You're 11. You don't know. But so now when I got older, I'm like, well, what adult thought that was okay? That you're literally grinding and slow dancing with another older child.
And where was the staff during this dance?
They were all in the room. They were just, you know, all in the room, you know, I guess drinking punch or, you know, whatever the case may be. And, you know, as the kids are jumping around and dancing to the music. But then they played this slow song, and I'll tell you what the song is. And every time I hear the song, it's a trigger. Do you remember the song, the group Sky, When You Touch Me?
Oh, yeah.
That was the song.
Very adult themed for some children. And why are they even playing it in the first place?
Right. And who thought that was okay?
And what year was this?
81. I'm 52 now. So it was 81.
Okay.
And it could have been 82, and I'm going into 12 because, so as the story goes, I was able to talk to my mom on the phone.
Okay.
How that happened, I don't know, but I was able to talk to my mother on the phone, and I was such in survival mode to get out of there. I told my mom that we went on field trips every Monday to Hollywood Bowl for some kind of little Muppet show or whatever. And she, you know, she listened and she heard what I said. And that following Monday, I was sitting there and I heard somebody, you know, pss, pss, into me. And I turned around and I looked, and my mother was behind a tree. And she was like, come on. And I literally crawled on my hands and knees and ran to her and jumped in a car, and she took off and she took me from there.
Wow. And did you ever have to go back?
No, they caught her maybe 2 years later, by the time I was 14. But yeah, I never had to go back, and I've never went into the foster care system after that. So in and out the foster homes and McLaren Hall from the age of about 2 years.
So after you went back with your mom, there was no follow-up by any social worker or any, like, I think nowadays they'll make the parent take parenting classes or something to prove that, okay, you're fit to have your child?
No, my mom was a rebel. And so she changed my name.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So she enrolled me in school under a whole new name.
Now, had the abuse been by her or someone else that you were living with?
By my mom.
Okay. And did that continue after she got you back?
Oh yeah. Yeah. But you know, when you're a child and you know your parent is your parent. You know, the good, the bad, the ugly of it all. You know, she just, I don't know. I think it was mental illness played a part in it. So as I was sharing this, the bits and pieces. I have a 21-year-old son. So I share bits and pieces of my life with him as he gets older that he can handle. And now that I look back on it in my mother's position, raising us and what she must have been going through, and I'm 11, so she didn't give me the normal tools that you give an 11-year-old to 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old girl, because she's literally on the run from the feds.
Wow.
You know, but so then you leave your child wide open. There was no counseling. I really didn't even tell her what happened to me. I was just happy to be home. And I just kept going on with life, not knowing that I'm traumatized.
Yeah. Now, in those 4 to 5 months at McLaren, did you ever experience what I hear a lot of survivors say, the physical abuse with the staff and them trying to restrain you or other kids around you, or the R&R room, or what they called rest and relaxation, but it was really like solitary confinement type of space where they would leave kids for sometimes days?
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
No, I don't recall that. But I do recall them locking us down, you know, where you couldn't get out the room. But I just thought, you know, this is how it is. You know, not realizing that I'm in somewhat like a child prison.
Yeah.
Yeah, not even, it's crazy. I have thought about McLaren Hall throughout the years. And I Googled them maybe about 7 years ago, just to see if it still existed. You know, because I thought to go back and just to look at it, to see what it was. Because, you know, your mighty 11-year-old mind, you know, there's in and out. Of course, I don't remember every day. And then I saw that it was closed down because of all the abuse.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, now I don't know if God just had grace on me and blocked my mind with some things, but I don't think so. Physical with the staff, no. Mental, yes, definitely. Because I was always trying to get away. But I was a very meek and quiet child because of abuse. So you could pretty much tell me anything and I would do it, or I would say I was never a troublemaker, or never a screamer, or, you know, just act out. I was never that child. Then my mom didn't play. You couldn't do anything. So anywhere else I went, I was that same child. So I'm quiet and I'm out the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're kind of under the radar. And two, that could be to your detriment if staff or other kids see that as like, oh, okay, well, I can take advantage of this child.
It's so exactly what happened.
Yeah, because in the 80s, after you, I want to say maybe 84, 85, is when I think 5 staff members were arrested because they had been giving drugs to the kids, or the kids that did require or have medication, they were over medicating the kids and sedating them so that they could abuse them. And there were no background checks going on during this time.
I heard that.
Yeah, they didn't start doing background checks till 2001.
My God.
So imagine 1960 something, all the way to 2001, you had no background checks.
I mean, when I read that or heard that, I can't recall if I read it or if I heard it said, and I was like, okay, this was just a playground for pedophiles.
Yeah.
And all kind of twisted people.
Yeah. And the county still owns that building. It's not torn down. It's still there. But they just use it for another purpose.
Wow.
But it's still McLaren Hall Children's Center, I think it says on the front. But now, it's just an administrative building.
How did you come to be familiar with McLaren Hall?
I love documentaries. So I watch a lot of documentaries, crime dramas, A&E, ID channel, all that kind of stuff. And I had watched a documentary that was about Lawrence Phillips, who had been a NFL player. And he's now deceased, but he had come to a whole bunch of trouble in his life. He had been in foster care. He had been in McLaren Hall. They talked about his time there. And that's the first time I saw Andrew Bridge, because Andrew is an advocate. So he speaks a lot. But he, during his stay at McLaren Hall, knew Lawrence Phillips. And so it came up there. And then Tiffany Haddish was at McLaren Hall as well. So her book, she talks about it. And as she was doing her book tour, she would speak about it because her mom had a near-death accident.
Mm-hmm.
So she couldn't physically take care of Tiffany and her siblings. And I guess they didn't place them with her grandmother. So they all went into foster care, kind of separated. And she went into McLaren Hall before she was put into a foster facility.
Mm-hmm.
My electrician, who is got to be in his late 60s, he and his sisters were at McLaren Hall. So it just kept coming up. So I just was like, okay, what is going on here? And I just started digging and looking, and the fact that this place has existed for so long, and thousands upon thousands of children at its height were coming through those doors. And LA County knew what was going on. LA County Board of Supervisors knew what was going on. They would do these little walkthroughs and all the kind of stuff, but people were just kind of turning their heads. Mm-hmm. And back in those days, prior to mid 80s or so, there was no DCFS. And that didn't exist. So it was, there wasn't like a Department of Children Family Services proper for LA County until the 80s. So where they actually started to monitor social workers and that kind of stuff and have some level of accountability. But even with that, you still see this kept going on with McLaren into the 90s, into the 2000s.
Sheesh.
So my question for, Andrew had been, well, what was the point of DCFS if this was still happening? And I don't know if you saw the episode with my neighbor, who is a social worker currently. She worked at McLaren Hall, like her first job in the social work arena or industry was at McLaren Hall in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And so she was saying even today, these kids, I said, well, where are they going? Where are the kids housed? Because these issues are still happening. Kids are still in foster care. So if there's no McLaren Hall temporary placement, where are they going? She said they're in hotels now and Airbnbs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they have these houses now. So oddly enough, my cousin is a foster parent now. Mm. And she had one little boy, Juan, who was with us for a while. And then Juan had so many issues that he had to be removed from her house because, he was showing some sexual stuff with the other child. So me experiencing what I experienced, I was like, okay, no, we love him. We really like him, but we can't put this other child at risk.
Right.
He ended up going to like a boys' home, and it was maybe about 5 to 6 boys in the house, and because we went to go visit him. And I'm like, okay, so I guess this is what they do now since McLaren Hall's closed down.
Yeah, I wonder about the private houses or privately owned houses, how they kind of find these group homes or what have you, because you hear people saying, oh, I'm gonna turn my place into a group home, and they have to go through all of these things to be compliant. But at the same time, you have more kids than you have space for. And I just wonder what the reasons have been over the decades for, okay, well, why in the 60s did you have this influx of kids that were juvenile delinquents, quote unquote, or they had some kind of criminal history? They may have just been truant, may have just been skipping school and got picked up, and now they're in the juvenile system. Because when McLaren became the temporary placement, that land had been used for other purposes. Like one decade, it was used for kids that had polio, and polio was an issue. So kids had polio, they had to be in wheelchairs before the vaccine and all that kind of stuff. So it was a school for handicapped children. Then at one point, it was a school for children or girls, pregnant teens. So then that phased out, and the county bought the land, and they started putting kids overcrowded from the juvenile detention centers into McLaren Hall. And so you got them mixed in with, that's why it looks like a prison, because that was the original purpose. Then you got orphaned kids, parents just driving down the highway, getting an accident, dead, kids don't have any family. So you got them in there with the juvenile detention kids and the mentally ill kids and the sexually abused kids, and all of that just dumped in together.
My God. So they were just it was like if I can say, like a cash cow, so to speak.
Yeah, they were warehousing these kids. And that's why I asked, I was like, well, there had to be some kind of money or something, like, where's the money? They always say follow the money. So like, where was the money in this, that this just kept happening for decades upon decades? There had to be some money involved somewhere for you to be, but then too, because the population of kids, you're talking about disproportionately Black and single mothers.
Mm-hmm.
And if they weren't Black, they were definitely either single or they had lack of resources.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of saying, hey, the mom seems to be a little unable to take care because maybe she has some health issues or some mental issues, let's give them some resources, or let's try to work. They just snatch the kids out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
it was when I was picked up, they pulled me out of my classroom and I went down to the office, and it was just some adults in the office, and I was told that I had to go with them.
Same thing with my electrician, and this was in the 60s, and you was in the 80s. Same thing. And then it wasn't social workers that came to the school, it was like police officers.
Mm-hmm.
Came to the school, picked up he and his sisters, said, well, do you guys have a key to the house? Because what happened, the backstory with him is that his mother had been receiving government assistance, so food stamps, that kind of stuff. And when she got to the point where she felt like she didn't need the assistance anymore, she stopped. Back then they were doing checks. Now they got EBT cards and all that stuff. So right. She stopped cashing the county checks and let them know, like, hey, I'm working. Because back in them days, they try to get you welfare fraud, and they didn't want you to even have a man in the house if you, claim you were single and all that kind of stuff. So she stopped cashing the checks, let them know, but they kept sending them. She still wasn't cashing them. So I guess that alerted them to come check or whatever, I don't know, but they tried to still accuse her of welfare fraud, because I guess they found that she was working. They were the ones sending the checks, but they didn't see that she wasn't cashing them. So in their mind, okay, you working and you still getting government assistance. They put her in jail. And while she was in jail, she had friends of the family, looking in on the kids, making sure they went to school, they were fed, they were clothed, all that stuff. But because of this jail thing, accusing her of welfare fraud, the kids got removed, went to the school, said, okay, well, we're gonna go by the house. The police saw the place was clean. They had food in the refrigerator, all that stuff. They still had to take them anyway, because those were the orders they were given. And so while the mom is fighting her case, they're at McLaren Hall for a week, and then they get placed at a foster home, which wasn't that much better. And he still can talk about to this day, like he remembers everything. He said his sister seemed to block out what happened, but they separated them at McLaren because they had the girls' side and the boys' side and all that kind of stuff. So he never knew what exactly happened with them. But when he came the first night, he said they take all your clothes and they throw them in this bathtub with some kind of chemical in it. And so after they, put you in this tub, I guess they don't know if you got lice or whatever. And so they give you these McLaren Hall t-shirts. And he goes into this dorm style room and there's just mattress on the floor. He said the mattress was dirty, it smelled like pee and all this other stuff. He tries to go to sleep and he wakes up, something warm on him. These boys are peeing on him. So he gets up and starts fighting. And then the staff try to get him because he's the one swinging and separate him. So now this is the 60s. And we all the way here.
Right. Oh my God. I mean, it's so crazy. So I don't know why. The first time I went to foster care, my brother, who was, if I was 10, then he was still in diapers. I remember that he was still in diapers. So when we got over, are you from California?
I've been here since the 80s.
Yeah, you say you lived in South Central. So you're familiar with the place that was on Imperial off of Normandy.
What was it?
It was like a county social worker building.
Oh, no. Because I lived near, when we first moved to LA or Cali, I was in like North Hollywood. Then we went to South Central Adams Crenshaw. So I was on that side, like 10th Ave and Adams.
Place was Imperial. It was on Imperial and like Normandy or whatnot. And they started talking about separating us there. And I said, no, you can't. You cannot separate us. He has to stay with me. I'm 10 and I got this big old baby with me and died. But thank God they found somebody for us to keep together because he was totally traumatized. For him to stay with me, and we got placed with family. But so the second time when I ended up at McLaren Hall, I think because I ran from the social worker when she got me in the car. But I think she went to go do a welfare check on someone else. And she left me in the car. And I got out and I started running. And then she was screaming and hollering for me to come back. And I was like, do I keep going, try to find a phone booth, try to get back home? Or do I come back with her? And then I went back.
How did you even think to run though?
I was such a survivor, even at such a young age, from being abused so much. I was just always at my little young age, I'm just gonna take off running until I get to wherever. And, so I almost escaped it, but I went back. And so they placed me in a foster home that was in Pasadena. And I was just there for like one day, I said. And then I went to McLaren Hall. So I think that's why they did that to me, because I was a runner, or, she may run away, because then I was planning to run away once I got there.
Yeah.
Yep. And I had a purple little pouch that they'd given us at some kind of celebrity thing that they had there. And I was keeping all the pictures. So whenever I was going to run, I make sure I take this stuff with me. When we went to the pool or we would go on bike rides, and it was a trail that they took us on the bike rides, and they had all the rocks and stuff that went down to like a river, or like, the canals, the water canals. But I just never had enough courage until I told my mother where I would be on a particular day.
So how is your brother doing?
Not good. Not good. He's pretty much hooked on drugs. Lives in Las Vegas. And yeah, he didn't do well at all. Because I've heard and I've read about the statistics of kids that go through foster care. They end up in prison, which I did go to jail, but not for a really long time. But I did go to jail after that, being a young teenager and early 20s. And just being raised by drug addict parents, and going through the foster care system.
What were you in jail for?
Oh God, I went a couple of times for ditching, and they put you in the holding cells, till your parent comes and gets you. Oh, well, let me back up, because when my mom got out of prison, I was 16. And when she got out of prison, she had not changed her behavior of being abusive. So she, wow, and I never thought about it like this until I'm going to say it to you right now. She was still abusive, and she tied me to her leg. Like, you're not even addressing my issues at this point, what I've been through. You're not thinking about it. So she's just think I'm being rebellious, and so she tied my arm to her leg and drove me to juvenile hall. So I got juvenile hall. I was like, oh, here I go again.
And this is just because?
I was just, because I was ditching and I was acting a fool. But, I had issues.
Yeah.
What do you expect for me to do? Go back?
That she caused. But now it's like, okay, I can't deal with this.
Right. So now you expect me to be the cookie cutter kid? No. The damage has been done already. So she got me to McLaren Hall. I mean, not McLaren Hall, to juvenile hall. And they were like, oh, we're full. So I don't know if she went to the back and talked to them. It was like, I'm just trying to scare her kind of thing. Because she put my sister in juvenile hall. My sister's 9 years older than me. So she's 61 now. Yeah. But she has spent time in juvenile hall. But we had both been molested as kids before we even went for all this stuff. We had already been molested as little girls. But so I ended up calling the police on my mom at 16 because he had beat me up so bad. And I went through my brother, and my brother became my legal guardian at 16.
So how many siblings are there all together?
I'm the seventh girl.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm the seventh girl, but they're from my dad as well. Okay. So my dad had kids, and then him and my mom had kids. But yeah, so then I went through that, but like I said, nobody got me any kind of help to talk to somebody to figure it out. I wasn't saying anything. I don't know how severely. I know how I'm being abused from my mom, but I don't realize the impact of being sexually violated so many times from childhood and then from McLaren Hall. I don't realize. I'm thinking this is normal life, and I'm just going to keep going. So I said that to say, oh yeah, so then I just started being rebellious and, ditching school, and because I missed so much school. So just ditching and doing stuff like that. And then by time I was 20 or 21, I stole a rent-a-car. Stole the rent-a-car, and the rent-a-car place reported it stolen, not taking it back kind of thing. And once I got pulled over, they took me to jail for it.
Now, how'd you get a rent a car?
Hmm?
How'd you get a rent? Oh,
my
okay.
brother got it.
Okay, because I was like, you have to be 25, right?
Yeah, no, and I
so from
yeah,
14 to 16, because your mom got you back at around like 12, right?
Going on.
And so between that time and when she went to jail, or after she went to jail, who did you stay with?
I stayed from the time she went at 14. I stayed with a family member. She was a family friend.
Okay.
Family friend. And I stayed with her, but I was so off the hook. She was like 28 and I'm 14. And then she had 2 sons that were younger. I think they were like 6 and 4. And then my little brother was 5. So she had all of us. And kudos to her at 28 back in 94 that she kept all of us. But I was too much for her.
Yeah.
So my brother ended up taking me on. And then my little brother stayed with her. So yeah, I ended up staying with my brother. And then my mom got out of prison when I was 16. And then when she got back, I kind of went back and forth between her and my brother.
Is your mom still living?
No, she passed 99
wow.
of a drug overdose.
Mm-hmm. And did you and your siblings have any other close family, like your grandparents or your dad's side?
No, on my mom's side, my grandmother, her mother was killed when I was maybe about 2 or 3 weeks old. She was murdered by her boyfriend. My grandfather, her father, he died when I was 5 because he was alcoholic. And that was it. And then I didn't find out who my dad was till I was 22.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, we had an aunt and stuff like that. And I had this conversation with my aunt and my cousin the other day. And she was like, I had no idea where you were. Because I said, I know if you would have known I was in a place like that, you would have came and got me. And she was like, oh, most definitely I would have came and got you. Because she would come and get us all the time when my mom was like acting up.
Mm-hmm.
Pick us up and, keep us for a week or 2, until she got herself together. But yeah, other than that, my mom was real private. And we, of course, we kept our mouth shut about what was going on inside the home. Like, you don't tell that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, had you thought about joining one of the lawsuits?
Yes. Definitely. I reached out to Crumb's office and I spoke with them yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't know what it entails and what's what, or, is it a severity type thing?
Well, it seems like the suit he's involved in with Schulman and Schulman, I think that's the attorney, the law firm, they are focusing on sexual abuse. Mm-hmm. So there are other survivors who may not have had sexual abuse, but they were abused. Mm-hmm. It may have been a broken arm or the mental abuse, the solitary confinement, that kind of stuff. So I don't know if there's a suit. It doesn't seem to be one ongoing for survivors of that type of trauma.
Yeah. So my question was, are you familiar if it's just sexual abuse from staff or
staff? Because what they're basing this particular suit on is negligence. Mm-hmm. So I would think that it's still negligence, even if you were abused by other children, because then where was the staff?
Right.
When this was happening. The woman that I mentioned that just coincidentally I met, and she's 61. Mm-hmm. She was abused by another child, but the staff watched.
Mm.
So
I for the life of me, I cannot understand how people could be so wicked and so evil to children. You know, I just, yeah.
that's
Well,
why
yeah,
it just, I can't believe that this has gone on or went on for so many years. And that's just what we
right.
know
So by
about.
the time I got there, it was already 20 years by the time I got there.
Yeah.
And then it went on
And just
for
kept
another
going.
20.
Because it seems like, I mean, from just my experience in the world, children and women are the least protected. Now let's add Black children. Let's add Black women. Least protected. And children are so vulnerable because they can't speak up for themselves, or they're not, if they don't have someone advocating for them, then they're not believed. You know, they're just kind of like, And like you said, it's a playground for pedophiles. You may discover that there's been some kind of trafficking going on within that institution.
I would not be surprised.
You know, you got the staff bringing their friends in to abuse these kids.
You know, that's what I had told someone, because I went through inner healing. And I had mentioned McLaren Hall to her. And she was like, "What is McLaren Hall?" Because she wasn't familiar. And I was like, "Oh, it's like a holding facility for kids who've been abused." And I didn't even know the severity of, like you said, the people, the orphans, the kids that were mentally had mental issues or whatever. I just thought it was for kids like me. So I was like, it's a holding place for kids going into the foster care system, or till their parents can get themselves together to get the kids back. And I said, it's shut down now because there was so much abuse. And I said, well, thank God nothing ever happened to me. But I'm thinking in my mind, it's normal for kids to do, like, kids do stuff. So I'm thinking, oh, this is normal. But like, no, it's not normal, because there was adults there watching this take place. Like I said, watching this older boy slow dance with me.
Yeah. And there was a woman who made a comment on the YouTube video, and she was saying that some of the staff would come to work drunk. So, and then they had this thing where they would call among the kids, I guess in the staff too, they would call it the chicken wing, because when they're trying to restrain a child, they would pull their arm up over their head till almost it reached the back of their neck. And I know there have been reports of children getting their arms broken. So you had people trying to run away. And one of the ladies that's in the lawsuit with Benjamin Crump and Schulman, that press conference that I went to, they all spoke at one point. And so she was saying that how she had been physically abused at her home, like her uncle had beaten her up or what have you. And I guess the grandmother was trying to raise her, but the grandmother was old, not much she could do. So they removed her, put her in McLaren, and then she was sexually abused there. So she was trying to run away, and she ran away, multiple times. She would get caught somewhere and come back. But there were a lot of kids who did escape, but they were living on the streets. So you got 11, 12-year-old kids homeless, living on the street because they're being abused at a facility that is paid to protect them.
And they have no clue about where to look for family members.
Exactly.
In some cases.
Yeah, because El Monte, that's, we know LA, that's far.
Yeah.
So if you don't have any money, no way to call anybody, you just roam the streets.
Yeah, you can't go to the police.
Because they're just going to take you right back there.
Mm-hmm. My God, it's a nightmare. Now, see, I'm thinking in my mind, I'm the only child that ever escaped from there.
And that's why it's so important for people to tell their stories, because it could be kids living that right now. And they're like, oh, I thought it was just me, or I thought it was just for these type of kids. And it was just, whoever, however.
It was, like I said, the sexual outside of the other kids, but mentally, the loneliness, the coldness of it all. I was like, I have to get out of here.
Now, did they have a school when you were there? Where you would go?
I don't remember going to.
Okay, because they implemented that. I don't know what year where they had schools set up and they had the kids would go to school every day.
No, I don't recall that. I don't recall. I remember that desk because I was constantly trying to get to that desk to use the phone. Hmm. So, I would be put in the room for that, getting caught trying to get on the phone. But yeah, I'm okay. Thank God, that God was just so gracious to me that it didn't really mentally mess me up too bad to where I literally should be somewhere in the corner rocking with my thumb in my mouth, of all the stuff that I've gone through. But for the other people, like the people I saw in the news conference, I'm like, my God, the horrors that you live with every day.
Yeah. And you just don't know who is right next to you that has gone through something like that and why they're behaving the way they may be behaving.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know you're using this for a recording, right? For your podcast. Yeah. So, yeah. But there's so many triggers. There's so many triggers that people aren't aware of if they don't know me. But, I don't like to keep constantly repeating my story because it's almost like a drug addict, getting that next hit, keep telling the story, getting high off of it. But you have to be careful how you deal with people.
Yeah.
Because you never know. You never know the triggers.
Just like the lady I mentioned that I met at the wedding. This was in April. I met this woman. I'm just at a wedding. And I don't forget faces. And I'm at this press conference and I'm like, I know this lady. I know her. And I said, oh, she was at the, oh my God. And LA, Black LA is small. There's always some kind of connection, less than 6 degrees of separation.
Right.
I know always somebody
This was meant to be. You were supposed to be there.
Yep.
For you to cross paths with her before. Yeah.
But that's what she was saying, is that she didn't even realize how her behavior was a direct result of the abuse, because her mother was mentally ill. And that's why she was removed from the home. Or whatever, that behavior was that her mom was displaying. Same thing with Andrew. His mom was mentally ill and single. And even though he had a grandmother who was partly raising him at one point, his mother said, well, I want my child back. And the grandmother was like, she kind of knew she didn't really have the resources or the wherewithal to really raise him properly. But she said, well, I can't keep her from her son in her mind. And so she sent him back to live with her. And then he winds up in foster care until he aged out.
And then where did he go after he was aged out?
Well, by then he had done very well in school, even though his foster family wasn't the best. They were mentally abusive. But he had done so well, he was able to go to college and kind of move on from there and become an attorney and an advocate for children and all of that. But yeah, his story is really, really inspiring And his book was really good. I got his book from the library and hit this on audiobook. If you don't, have time to read it, you spend a lot of time in the car. So
what's the name?
Hope's Boy. Because his mother's name was Hope. Hope's Boy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Really good. Yeah. So, but I'll let you get on with your weekend. You got your food.
Yeah, got my dinner.
Yeah, but thank you for talking to me. I'm hoping to I found out about the press conference because I was just trying to follow up on the lawsuit, because I knew that this one that Crump is involved with now came about, and I think May is when the LA Times said that there were more survivors coming out and they were suing LA County for negligence. And then I'm just like, okay, let me see what's going on with it, and finding out that now Ben Crump is attached to it. He had that press conference last week. So hopefully I can attend some of the court hearings, because typically, they'll let the public attend, but there's not enough attention on this at all, because there were not many people there at the press conference. You're hard pressed to find out a lot of current information about what's going on. So I'm going to keep doing more episodes and just following up on it. If you or your brother have anybody else that will want to speak with me, just let me know. Give them my info.
Okay, yeah. And then if for anything you to text me or reach out, or if there's some kind of conferences that, for the survivors, or just anything that has to do with the foster care system.
And there's a big group, Tiff, on Facebook, Survivors of McLaren Hall.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's called Survivors of McLaren Hall?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I'll look them up.
Check them out. But if you become part of the lawsuit, then I'll probably be seeing you if I can get to some of the hearings. And I hope it goes well. I hope these people get not only apologies, but free therapy, some kind of benefit, something.
I was just gonna say that, free therapy for life. Yeah.
Because they got the money. So
exactly. And especially when they drop the ball that way.
Exactly. Over and over and over again.
For years and decades. Wow. All righty. Well, it was so great to talk to you.
You too. Thank you again.
All righty.
All right.
You have a great week.
You
Bye-bye.
too.